Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you today with an article from PJ Media dated October 16th. And it says, Hey AOC, there is no moral equivalency between Hamas and Israel. And as I've stated on a number of videos since the Israel-Palestine thing has been going on, conflict, not thing, um, I do want to do some of these articles that do shine a light on what is going on there, because there's a lot of BS out there right now. So, and I said too in part one, because this column is part two in a series of articles, sort of thing. And I'll come to that in a sec. So, part one probably should have premiered by now at the time I'm recording this. And again, here is part two, and part three should be fairly soon. I'm actually going to record it right after I record this one. So, let's just get right in. So again, it says this column is part two of a series of articles explaining the fallacies that have led to the world's leftists supporting Palestine, Gaza, and Hamas's horrors. So it says the concepts of Palestine and Palestinians did not exist before the mid 20th century, but truth has little meaning to the left when it is in conflict with their anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, Marxist, socialist, destruction of Western culture agenda. Even when confronted with the facts, they attempt to justify the truly evil actions of Hamas. The latest argument against Israel is that Israel's retaliation against Hamas is not proportional. We are already being inundated with images of the wounded in Gaza. Israel's being called an aggressor and worse. The images of war will be shown more and more in the coming days until the leftist agenda of removing the last week's images from our minds is achieved. But we cannot let it happen, or let that happen. So we must always remember what Hamas has done and how they degraded all of humanity with their conscious targeting of civilians. We must never forget the images of people being dragged out of their cars to be stomped on until they die by Hamas, the videos that Hamas proudly took of homes being invaded and children killed, or the horrors of videos of victims being filmed on the victims' own cell phones and then sent to their families from their phones. Yeah, I don't know why these guys recorded all of that stuff. It's like if you wanted public sentiment to swell against Israel, you did a horrible job of it. I mean, you're basically showing you murdering and slaughtering innocent people, and you're like, oh, the world's going to be on our side. Like, no, no, it really isn't. Okay, so I don't understand why they thought that would be a good idea, other than just to show their barbarism. But okay. Says Hamas has demonstrated, oh, there's a word, barbarism. Hamas has demonstrated a barbarism unseen in humanity for hundreds, if not thousands of years. We must not let anti-Semitic Marxists like Representative AOC change the narrative in an attempt to transform Hamas and the people of Gaza into victims. Ocasio-Cortez and her ilk are calling for Israel to be stopped as they feel that Israel's response is too aggressive and uncalled for. The aggressiveness of telling people to get out of buildings so that they don't get hurt, uh, that doesn't sound hugely aggressive to me, but okay, maybe that's just me. As the Swiss foreign minister is one of many using the new leftist term proportional reaction, a term that is being picked up everywhere by pro-Hamas supporters like Ocasio-Cortez and the BBC. Well, what's a proportional reaction? Is Israel supposed to just run into Gaza and slaughter what 1,500 of their citizens and do the things to them that I'm not going to go into further detail in this video that was done to the Israelis? Like that's what a proportional reaction is. Okay, it would be like if you stab someone in the chest, then they get to go and stab, or then you get to go stab one of their people in the chest. Like that, it's no a proportional reaction. That doesn't make any sense because no, Israel's not going to do a proportionate reaction. They're going to react exactly what they should do and the way they've always done it, which is going to try to make sure the innocent people are not hurt. Which, yeah, unfortunately, it's going to happen while going after the people that actually caused the problem. See, there's a difference there between those two sides, and right off the bat, you can't claim a moral equivalency between a side that's just let's kill innocent people and a side that's going we're trying to make sure the innocent people do not get killed. So let's get back to the article here. Since they can't really hang their head on the fallacy of a historical Palestine, they're trying to stop Israel from destroying the evil of Hamas based on the idea that Israel is doing worse to Hamas than Hamas did to Israel. Yeah, and I've seen that, and people are saying like there's a genocide going on. It's and it's such a bad genocide that the Palestinian population in Gaza has actually grown. Now, I don't know about you, but a genocide has a specific term, and it's not making sure there are more people that you're trying to supposedly get rid of that now exist. That's like what's happening is the literal opposite of a genocide. So there's one of those things is even while history, common sense, and the most basic ethical standards of humanity demonstrate that Hamas and its supporters have descended to a level below even animals, let us evaluate this concept of proportionality. Says General William Tecumseh Sherman of the Union Army is credited first with the saying, "War is hell." There is no proportionality in war. You fight for your survival, and it is uglier than any human being should have to experience. In some ways, that's the point of war, to make it so horrible that people will do almost anything for peace. If Hamas didn't want hell rained down on Gaza, it should not have consciously and specifically targeted the elderly, women, and children. And I was thinking this article is going to go into what General Sherman did in the Civil War. If you know that, if you don't know what it is, just look up Sherman's March to the Sea, and what he did was particularly brutal, but it had the intended effect of really getting the South to say, "Yeah, we're kind of done." So, yeah, I don't know. I think this article might try to draw some parallels between the situations, but I guess not. We're gonna go right back to the Gaza stuff. Because Hamas chose to drop into a music festival and grape, I'm going to say that for the YouTube censors, kidnap and young people celebrating life through music. There was no pressure on Hamas to video its acts of horror and send those images to families with the express intention of traumatizing them. Terrorists did not choose to perform these heinous acts. Yep, I read that right. Sorry, I was blank there for a minute. I'm going to start that sentence over. It says terrorists did not choose to perform these heinous acts, and there's every justification to make sure this never happens again. But the left is now claiming that this isn't right, that Israel's actions are greater than what they suffered. They're demanding that Israel abides by the principle of proportionality, a term that they think means that while Hamas can kill Israeli babies, Israel cannot kill any civilian even by accident. Yeah, and it's so dumb to see this. It's like, no, they're allowed to do anything they want to you, but you can't do anything back to them. It's like, well, why not? Okay, I think they're allowed to defend themselves. I don't think that should even be like a question. So back to the article. It says, ironically, the Lieber Institute for Law and Warfare at West Point has established that there is no reliable reports that the IDF, that's the Israeli Defense Forces, have ever intentionally targeted civilians. Just to juxtapose this against Hamas' specific intent to cause terror among civilians. The Israeli Air Force is the only one in the world that gives notice to civilians to exit a building before destroying it, as I previously said in this video. And Israel handcuffs itself in battle by doing everything possible to avoid civilian casualties. While Israel defends all civilians, Hamas uses children and its own civilians as human shields to protect themselves. Simply put, Israel uses the IDF to protect its citizens. Hamas uses its citizens to protect Hamas. The civilian pain that is happening in Gaza as Israel now attacks, is a direct result of Hamas's practice of shielding itself with babies. The principle of proportionality is very specific. Attacks that might affect civilians are prohibited unless they are excessive in relation to the concrete and direct military advantage anticipated. Since the military advantage to get Hamas out of Gaza and its supporters defeated forever, then Israel is following that principle perfectly. The Israeli military's need to remove any vestige of Hamas from the world is so necessary that, sadly, civilians may get hurt. But remember, given that the IDF gives advance notice, the only reason for a civilian to be in Gaza is if they support Hamas or Hamas is using them as human shields. That's a very important point to remember, because this is the kind of thing Hamas does, and I know with our Western brains, we don't like to think about stuff like that, and we can't really comprehend it, but they do this, and it's well documented that this is something that they do. So, again, we would look at that and say, that's horrific, but they look at it and go, that's necessary. There's no real Palestine. Hamas targets civilians in the cruelest of ways, and Israel still does everything possible to avoid collateral damage. But these anti-Israel fanatics still say that too many Gaza citizens are getting hurt or dying. They think they are the official arbiter of how many Gaza casualties are too many, and castigate Israel for defending itself or defending herself. If the supporters of the fanatical and evil Hamas really want to crunch numbers to determine how many is too many, consider the following. If these Marxists want proportionate precision based on percentages, a literal eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, and this is probably going to go over what I was talking about earlier, says which only ultimately leads to blind men with no teeth, then let us review the statistics. Says there are over 1,500 times more Arab Muslims than Israeli citizens. It's 9.5 million versus 1.5 billion, and over, oh, wow, did he do that right? Yeah, he switched. Yeah, he should have. This article screwed this up. The Arab says right here, because it starts with the Arab Muslims and then Israeli citizens. That's why I got screwed up there. It should actually start with the 1.5 billion versus 9.5 million to keep it in the same order that these two are in. But anyway, that's my proofreader brain doing that, and that's why I get screwed up there. So Again, there are over 1,500 times more Arab Muslims than Israeli citizens, should be 1.5 billion versus 9.5 million, and over 1,300 Israeli civilians have been kidnapped, raped, they said the word raped, and or killed in this war so far. Since there are over 1,500 times more Arab Muslims who are supporting Hamas in the region, we multiply 1,500 times over 1,300 victims, and by their logic of precise proportionality, we would need to kill 2 million Arab Muslim civilians to be pari passu, I've never seen that phrase before, with Hamas, and God forbid we ever have to do that. I no, that should not be a thing. That shouldn't be a consideration. No, yeah. But that's what it means by proportionality that these people saying it. It's like, okay, well, this is how much of our population you killed. If we were to scale that up for your population, this is what we got to do to theirs. Of course, everyone's going to say, yeah, you can't do that, which is the exact correct response. Because while Israel works hard to keep Gaza civilian casualties down, Hamas consciously aims for civilians. While Israel strives to remove civilians from fighting areas, Hamas uses children, babies, and the elderly as human shields. When the left is complaining that too many Gaza citizens are getting injured, they are rejecting the mathematics that demonstrates how Israel really is restraining herself. Says this entire rhetoric of principled proportionality is just another public relations scheme that, when accompanied by painful images of war, is an attempt to destroy Israel in the minds and hearts of people around the world. We must not let this publicity stunt, which capitalizes on the devastation that Israel is required to perform on Hamas, subvert our support for Israel and her actions. Israel and the Israel Defense Force is the most ethical army in the history of the world. Yeah, I don't know any other army that isn't saying like, "Hey, we're about to come into your area, so get all the innocent people. You need to leave before we come into the area." Like, does any imagine if like the Romans did that? The Romans wouldn't exist anymore. Okay, or like any other country that I just don't know any other army that would do that. Because rather than condemning its precise efforts to keep civilians safe, we must laud it. And let's always remember, while Israel uses the IDF to protect civilians, Hamas is killing its own civilians to protect Hamas. As Golda Meir, former Prime Minister of Israel, is credited with saying, if the Arabs lay down their weapons, there will be peace. If the Israelis laid down their weapons, there would be a massacre. We just experienced the truth of her words in the massacres and horrors of Israel not holding their weapons strongly enough. Do not ask us to invite in other massacres in the future, God forbid, by using the leftist argument that Israel needs to restrain herself against villains who use babies as shields, and then turn to their advantage the deaths of those babies that Hamas is directly responsible for murdering. Israel will always strive to save civilians while destroying the evil of Hamas and its supporters, but there is no moral equivalency, and we cannot let fools like AOC and her squad be left unanswered. Yeah, and they're some of the worst proponents of the misinformation going on now. As I'm recording this video, there was the supposed hospital airstrike that turns out that it was actually a failed Hamas rocket went off and blew up a hospital. And Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar are already out there saying the Israelis bombed a hospital, even when Arab language television had already come out at the time I saw the article and said, no, 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 that was a failed Hamas rocket. So even the people that are ostensibly on Hamas's side were like, no, 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 they're the ones that did it. It was not Israel. So yeah, so you can kind of I'm gonna go back to the bottom here. You can kind of see what we're dealing with about the propaganda out there and why it needs to be counteracted. And thank God that something like X exists and it's not like it was before Elon bought it, because otherwise we'd probably only be seeing one side of the coin at this point, and who knows what people would be thinking or doing. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. I hope to hear from you. I do want to hear what people say about this. So like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.